G'day, g'day. So today we are going to be filming a bush salad. But before we do that, I felt you might like to see a lovely waterfall. Now this is the Kadumba, or Kadumba, however you want to pronounce that, falls. Just on the way to Scenic World out there. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning, about November 28th I think. So we're going to harvest up a delicious bush salad and hope you enjoy. So the first ingredient we're going to be gathering here is the flowers of Dianella. Of course there are a lot of different varieties of Dianella, about 10 varieties. Now these guys here, whenever I gather the flowers of Dianella, I don't like to grab the whole thing. And if there's any that already have little berries forming, I'd prefer to just leave those on there, because the berries are quite delicious. So I tend to just grab the top half to 1/3, and those are going to become part of our little delights. We're going to gather those as we go. Now just off to the side we have another variety of Dianella, a different colour. So right here, very camouflaged. So you see this? Very much darker colour. Because it is a slightly different variety, I am going to taste it to make sure it is, because one of the varieties also tastes like chili, which is actually quite nice. So I'll give the young berries a try. Yeah, so this is the one that has that chili flavour to it. So it's very interesting. So it's a dark variety of Dianella, dark flowering. So our next plant here is cat's ear. So it's very similar to Dandelion, has the same sort of deep root system as Dandelion, a lot of the same minerals, and you can make a Dandelion tea substitute with this. The big difference is that these leaves are furry, and you can see that they have these little projections here that come off very evenly on both sides. We're going to add a couple fern leaf tips to the salad as well. And this guy here, just going to zoom on in that. A little tip, just let your fingers run through, and that little bit that comes off, that's all we're getting. It's almost like a little pea or a bean or something. You get a couple of those, nothing much, but a little something, adds up the meal. And then of course you've got tree ferns, this one right next to us here. So this is very much a fern country now. And you can eat the scrolls off those, and you've got the fiddle leaf ferns as well, you've got the bracken ferns. So the next bit of tucker we got going on here is the tree fern. I'm going to guess it's probably a rough bark, and the reason I'm guessing that is because of the amount of these little hairs that are all the way up this stem here. Yeah, it's not the only one with a hairy stem, is it, gentlemen? Yeah, nah. But anyway, so with this one, you want to get your best stuff is obviously going to be the fiddlehead, but the younger the fiddlehead, the more juicy that's going to be. You can obviously peel and roast the older ones, that's fine. Once they branch out, they're no longer really that useful, but once they dry out, you can actually use them to make friction fire. So let's get in there. Alright, same process as before, just get it in your hand. And whatever comes off, that's going to be your most tender part right there. Alright, so I'm going to grab a couple of these. That'll add nicely to the salad. So continuing on with the cat's tail, you can eat the flowers as well. However, this little green bit down the base is a bit more bitter. So I tend to grab the flower at the top and then peel all this away. And we'll add that into the little basket. Another beautiful flower that I like to add is the Buttercup. This is just Meadow Buttercup, and some people will say this is poisonous, so I do caution you, do not do anything that I do in these videos, do not eat anything I eat in these videos. I usually only put in a few of these flowers, and I mean a few, like maximum of 5-ish, you know, like it's not something I'm putting a heap of. Yeah, lucky find this one. Still a bit young, but might just nab that. And that is going in a delicious basket of goodies. Yeah, very nice. I suppose this is a whole bunch of it waiting to come out, is it? Where's the leaf for this one? Is that... Ah, this little tri-leaf here. Well, that's pretty. I'll have to memorize that one. So we've got a central vein, serrated, basically ovate shape, and it's trifoliate. So I suppose that would be more of it over here, and more of it here. And if I bring it out a little bit more, it should get more sunlight and then produce more berries, and it'll outcompete other things around the area that are less edible. So these little red dudes I've been finding are actually bush strawberries. They're you got the seeds on the outside, very obvious characteristic of strawberries. They're not going to get very big because they are wild, and everything else just comes along and nabs them. So that's why I'm nabbing them right now, because I know that if I don't, something else will come along like tomorrow morning. And whenever a berry is the most shiny, that's usually when it's the ripest. Unfortunately, that does mean that the flavor's not going to be as full, but there you go. Okie doke, so this is dandelion, not to be confused with the cat's ear. Now I'll show you the difference, okay? So you can see. Dandelion, cat's ear. This one, smooth, thin. This one, a little bit thicker and furry. All these little furs all over it. The basket's getting really nice. I've got about 50 of those little wild strawberries. They're nice. So again, same thing. Just pull this fella out and give this little bit a little bit of a twist. So you grab all this and you give this a twist, and then all this stuff should come on out. So throw all that away. That comes in and in the basket. We also harvested some slender leaf plantain, which is this long strappy leaf here with the 7 usually. If it's broadleaf plantain, it'll have 5 veins, but if it's slender leaf, it'll have 7. Alright folks, so now we're talking herbs to add to the salad. So this lovely thing here is called Cassinia. Now this one here has 3 distinct smells, very similar to sort of rosemary, tarragon, depending on how you chop it or rub it. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this stuff because it is really quite nice, and we're going to be putting that into our deliciousness as well. Now it also goes by the name of the cauliflower bush or native rosemary. We do have a video on that, you can have a look on that. Our next amazing ingredient is the young leaves of the native sarsparilla. These have a lovely aniseed, licorice sort of flavour, and we're going to be chopping those finely throughout the meal. And they're going to come up real nice. When they're nice and soft and young like this, they're very, very beautiful. Not to be confused with the barbed wire vine, which is this one right here. Right? That's got these leaves, and it's got like a barbed wirey vine to it. So you can see the difference here. Long, thin and pointy, native sarsaparilla. All this sort of big, bulgy and spiky, that's barbed wire vine. Now barbed wire vine and the sarsaparilla can both be used as twine, as bush string. And I have heard that the root of the native sarsaparilla tastes like licorice, but I've never felt the urge to pull it up because it's just such a beautiful, abundant producing plant. Okie doke, so the next plant we're going with is the young leaves of this. So this is a very sweet vine. It's in the grape family, in the Australian grape family. So it might be water vine or something else. So the young leaves here is what we're after, and even the young stem. So you can take a bit of this here, a bit of this there. This next one along is pretty good, but the other one probably not so much because it's a bit too far along. We've already added a fair bit of that into the basket here. So the basket's looking pretty delicious now. And we're going to get a whole bunch more of that because we want this to be a lot bigger. And then we're going to head out into the meadowlands. So there is a lot of tucker out there too. Now, of course, no bush salad would be quite complete without clover. The flowers and also the leaves. Get these little ones in there. I tend to just sort of pluck off the stem because I find it to be a bit sort of fibrous. And there's a lot of varieties of clover. I personally find that the leaves, whilst they are edible, they are a bit fiddly to harvest, so I'm probably not going to grab a whole bunch of those. A couple more clover heads. Get your nail in there and it pulls out a bit easier. No salad would be complete without a little bit of wood sorrel, because it has that beautiful sourness, but you don't want to have too much of this because it does have oxalate crystals. which you can destroy by steaming it, or also if you just eat the right other foods, it'll neutralize it. Get some nice little pretty pink flowers in there. Yes, coming along very nicely. All sorts of colours going on in here. Alright, another fantastic species we've got here is the lawn daisy. The flowers and the leaves are edible and I love them. They're brilliant. So I'm going to be putting a whole bunch of these in there. Not particularly sweet or anything, but they're just nice, you know. They're just nice. Something to add to the salad. Something to make it a little bit different. All the colours. The final plant I'm going to be adding to this thing, something in the family of Rumex. It's this stuff right here. Right? It's quite a nice sour leaf and stem. They're quite crispy. So I'm going to be gathering up a whole bunch of that to put in the salad. One of the last stages of the process in your foraging your bush salad is to clean your salad. Now, the best place to do that is anywhere that you can get a little bit of a waterfall or a nice stream where it's flowing. And the reason for that is because the water is going to be pushing down all the plant matter. See, if I leave the basket in the water and I push it down, everything wants to float on top of it because it's all organic matter. But if you have a little bit of a waterfall going, then the water pushes everything down. But I can also hold it down with my hand. And again, the basket is of course porous, so all the other little bits that you don't want are going to flow on through. Okay folks, so we're now in the kitchen in the hostel here, and we've got all our little delights all organised here. So we had the, I think it's like a Rumex over here, we have the fiddleheads of the rough tree fern, we have the wild strawberries, yeah, and then we also have in the top corner here, this is wood sorrel, again, so the big flowers, you can eat the whole stem, but we're going to chop those to make it a bit more palatable. Then you've got here our lovely logo displayed with native sarsparilla. Underneath that we have a different type of fern, which I think is called the king fern. Here we have the flowers of the Dianella, and as you can see, some of them are actually nicely opened. Little yellow stamens coming through there, all that beautiful stuff. And just at the top here, that there is the ripe berry. That's the first berries of the month. On the right of those, we have the flowers of mullein, or that's a twiggy mullein. And over here we have the dandelion leaves, dandelion greens if you want to call them. Then up here we have the Cissus hyperglauca. That's the leaves, young leaves of the sweet grape, forest grape there. Off to the right of that we have the cat's ear. And at the back of that, again, we have more fern scrolls there, but we have the clover leaf and clover flower there. Then we have in this next little corner here, we have the dandelion and cat's ear flowers. Over here we have broadleaf plantain. Very closely related to the slender leaf plantain. These also go by the name psyllium, of psyllium husk. You can make like a sago pudding out of that sort of stuff. And then just here is the very similar to the leaf of the broadleaf plantain, but it only has the central vein going on, and that's the lawn daisy, and those are the flowers there. Everything else is in our little basket here, and the only thing that we really need to prepare is that we need to prepare these fern fiddleheads. So that's pretty much the salad right there, folks. That's gorgeous, isn't it? I like that, that's pretty cool. Now of course we do still have the fiddly bit. Haha, that actually has a pun and I didn't even realise, because these are fiddleheads, so it's the fiddly bit. Alrighty, so the first step with this whole fiddlehead thing, basically what you're after is this little ring. So you pop out all these little bits of scroll here, and you can roast those up later, but you got to do it on a fire. You got to actually have flames in order to get rid of those little hairs. Once you've done that, eventually you'll end up with this, which is great. But you get your knife, so get your knife on there, and try and work your way around this whole thing. A little bit tedious. Now, I will make a little disclaimer here. You cannot survive in the forest as a vegan or as a vegetarian. It cannot be done. It has not been done. There is no tribe in the world that exists as vegans or vegetarians. It simply cannot be done. You're welcome to try, but you can't sustain it. And I said survive. You might you know, be able to last a month or two, but that's usually because you had some fat stores left over from eating some animal. Now you could also add Hakea nuts into this, or Banksia nuts, as a substitute for something like pine nuts. However, you have to harvest them about a week beforehand, or you have to throw them on the coals to open up the seeds, and then you can add them in. A little bit different. So anyway, once you've peeled all that, then you have something like this, and you can just break those into little bits, like that. And we'll just add those into our salad. So there's our little delights all scattered on in there. Anyway, have yourselves a lovely day. Go bush, try the salad, and go plant some seeds and get naked and freaking frolic and be fun. Well, I suppose the last thing you wanted me to do was to actually eat the salad. Might prove my point. It's actually quite good. However, I would probably not harvest the cat's ear leaves because the furriness is a bit of an odd texture. Everything else aside from that, actually pretty good. And I squirted a little bit of bush lemon on there as well for some extra deliciousness. The wild strawberries are basically watery and flavourless, but they're pretty. And I also added the Cassinia herb that I showed you earlier in the video. All in all, pretty good. So, peace out and take care of yourselves.